have a concern that if you allowed or gave permission to those armed men in that picture to be on your property with your permission, that you could be sued for that based on what happened?
I did not allow anybody, neither I gave anybody permission.
Not my question.
Okay, sorry.
My question is this: do you have concern that if you allowed armed men to protect your property and someone was shot at your property, that you and your family could face a lawsuit for that?
Could you repeat that question? I'm sorry.
Sure. Do you have concern?
Mm-hmm.
Well, I'll start with this. You, after watching the videos, you understand that Mr. Rosenbaum was shot on your property, correct?
Yes.
My question to you is this: do you have concern that if you allowed armed men to protect your property, and one of those armed men then ended up shooting someone, that you and your family could be sued for that?
No, sir.
You don't have any concern about that?
No, sir.
How much?
That makes a pretty good point. Now I know where they were going. It's in these guys' interest. This goes to credibility of the witness. They don't want to admit that they had people guarding their property because now they have liability that they shot somebody. However, if they don't admit it, they can claim we didn't give them permission. We don't have liability. They were there without our permission. But yet we have Kyle getting a ride. We have the brother taking a picture with him. And suddenly they're like, we didn't give him permission. Man, that goes to a lot of credibility. Now I know why they don't want to admit they gave him permission or talk to him about it.
Inventory from the 24th, the 23rd and the 24th, in terms of loss of money, how much money did your businesses lose in terms of damage to property?
I cannot give you an exact number at this moment.
Can you give me a ballpark?
Sorry, I cannot remember at this moment.
More than 100,000?
Yes.
More than 250,000?
I do not know, sir.
So,
you know it's more than 100.
is this like your family? Is this the business that feeds your family?
I work for my dad.
Okay.
Yes.
And you don't have, and you're the inventory manager?
Yes.
And you don't know what your loss was from those fires?
I personally never calculated it. My dad does the money part.
Did your, if you know, did Car Source and Car Doctor, did they have insurance for those vehicles that were burned?
Yes.
Okay. Now, on the 20, do you know Dominic Black?
He should have went back with, did y'all file a claim with your insurance? Do you know how much the claim was?
Black, by chance?
I do not.
You know Nick Smith?
Yes.
Do you know a man by the name of Justin Hamilton?
Ex-mechanic, yes.
Okay, and Mr. Smith and Mr. Hamilton both worked for you, is that right?
In the past, yes.
And just letting you know, Mr. Black, Dominic Black has testified in this case already, okay? If Dominic Black said that you gave him permission along with the other people to be those armed men to be present on your property on the evening of the 25th, would that be not true?
I did not give anybody permission.
So Mr. Black would be lying about that.
Objection. Typically, the witnesses are not permitted to testify as to the truthfulness of statements made by others. However, the witnesses, you can rephrase it in such a way that the witness can be made aware of the testimony of the other witness and then asked for the truth of it. But not truth of the other person's testimony, the truth of the matter.
That was already done.
Well, it was, but I'm going to let him.
Okay, Judge, fair enough. On the morning of the 25th, strike that. On the 24th, do you know, did Nick Smith and Justin Hamilton come to your properties and help try to put out those fires?
Which day was that?
The 24th.
Which day of the week?
Monday?
You, sir. What did we?
Monday the 24th.
Now, could you repeat the question, please?
On Monday the 24th, did Nick Smith...
Now I'm more concerned that it's not, he doesn't know what he's doing. Now I know you need to be careful when you're on a stand. I would probably ask him, have you consulted with a lawyer before you testified today? What you know, I realize there's attorney-client privilege, but what was the context of your lawyer talking about your testimony today? I mean, now I see why they're both like, I don't know what you're talking about. No, not me. No, I never did. No, I don't remember giving her a ride. No, I don't remember getting this checks. No, I don't remember being in this picture. What the hell?
Smith and Justin Hamilton come to your properties, the Car Source properties, to help put out those fires?
On which property?
Any of the properties.
Do you know the time? Like, sorry, I can't understand the question.
You don't understand the question of whether or not somebody came to help put out fires at your property?
On Monday, you said?
Yes.
You said, what was the name of the people?
Nick Smith, he worked for you at one point.
See, now he's stalling. I don't. What difference does it make what the name of the people is? Either you remember it or you don't. The names are unimportant. Do you remember anybody putting out fires on your property?
Yes.
Years back, yes.
Justin Hamilton, he worked for you at one point, yes?
Years back, yes.
Did they come to your properties or property and help fight or put out the fires from the 24th?
At the location of Car Doctor.
So, yes, they did.
Yes. I will have to look at the video or photograph. I cannot remember that far back. I'm sorry.
Were you there attempting to put out any of the fires on your property?
No, sir.
Did you call anyone to assist, to try to help, or did you just let the property burn?
What do you mean by that? I'm sorry.
Did you do anything? Did you call anyone? Did you ask for help? Did you physically do anything to try to stop
I
the
called
fire?
911 several times, yes.
Did anybody show up?
I do not know.
Okay. Nick Smith,
If you didn't know and you weren't there, why'd you call 911? What did you tell 911?
and Justin Hamilton, if you know, they showed up at least one of your properties to help put out the fires, correct?
I will have to look at the photo or video.
Okay. Do you recall asking them to help put out the fires at your property?
I did not ask anybody.
No?
I did not ask.
And on the 25th, the morning of the 25th, did you call Nick Smith again and ask him for help that day?
I did
Which would
not.
be Tuesday?
I did not.
Okay. So, if I could just maybe turn around. So this is, we have referred to this as CarSource High School. That's a school right there, right? I'm sorry, you have to talk in the microphone.
Oh, yes.
Okay. And on the morning of the 25th, this building right here, the school, had suffered graffiti damage. Do you know that?
I do not.
You weren't at the property across the street from it earlier that morning?
I did not stay there.
I didn't ask you that. I asked, were you there and did you see graffiti on the school?
I saw graffiti on the roadblocks. I did not see it on the school.
Okay. Did you see that morning Kyle Rittenhouse cleaning graffiti off of that school?
I did not.
You had a conversation with Kyle Rittenhouse that morning of the 25th, correct?
I remember that I had basically when I got there with my parents, people reach out to us, pretty much.
And when you say we got there, you're talking
At
about
CarSource.
the 5912?
Yes, 5821.
Sorry, 5821. And you had a conversation, according to your statement, with Kyle Rittenhouse.
Which, yes,
Yeah, you gave a written statement on September 11th to a Detective Cypress.
yes.
Remember that?
I do remember.
Okay. And you had a conversation with Kyle Rittenhouse, correct?
Yes.
And Kyle Rittenhouse, he had offered to help, according to your statement, and fundraise for your business. Is that right?
He wanted to help with fundraising the business.
Right. You told that to Detective Cypress.
Yes.
And you gave him your phone number because he asked for it. Is that right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Now, was there any damage to the car doctor?
See, this is where it's kind of bullshit about a civil trial and a criminal trial. When a criminal trial, if somebody is facing civil litigation, they don't want to testify at a criminal trial that can be used against them in a civil trial. But they're not allowed to take the fifth because it's not self-incrimination of a criminal act. It's only going to hurt their civil trial. So their only option is to not testify, which they don't have an option, they get subpoenaed. And the other option is to lie and not say anything that's going to hurt you on a civil trial because I'm going to have to pay. What do I care if I lie on a stand? I don't want to get caught up in a lawsuit and lose my business because I asked guys and gave them permission to be on my property and now I'm facing lawsuits. So now I have to stick to my story that I never gave anybody permission, so I can't get sued. And what does the DA do with that information? Instead of clearing it up or giving them a chance to settle the civil, or they exploit it and they put them on a stand and get the answers they want. They don't care that it's fake. They don't care that it's bias. They don't care that they have a monetary interest in their statements to be false. None of that matters. As long as they give the crooked district attorney the right information that helps their case, they don't care if it's true or not. Man, our system is so freaking broke.
Or to CarSource on 63rd? Was there damage to those properties on the 24th?
Which was Monday?
Yes.
Dude, somebody give this guy a damn calendar already. How, man, if I was there, if I was on this courtroom right now, I would have already printed out a freaking calendar. I would have circled Monday the 24th and Tuesday the 24th or 25th in big letters with arrows drawn to it. And I would bring it up on a stand and fold it in a little A-frame and set it there and go, here's something for your reference, sir. I know you're having a problem with those dates. And I would put it right fucking in front of him. And then the defense would probably be like, well, I'm usually working for the prosecution. That's why I say defense. In this case, the prosecution, objection, Your Honor. He's calling my client stupid. Whatever. Shut up, you freaking idiots.
I'm sorry, it's just over a year. Monday. Okay, Monday. Okay, please go on with the question. Sorry, could you repeat that?
Was there any property damage to the car doctor or the car source, what we call car source 3, on the 24th?
On the car source on 63rd, no damage.
Car doctor.
No damage.
So, right, so 2 of the 3 properties at that point had not suffered any damage from the riots.
There were a few windshields crack on the inventory itself at car doctor.
The buildings were okay?
Yes.
Okay. How about on the, did you go down and check your property on the 26th, which would have been the morning after the shootings?
Which location?
Both of the properties that had not been previously damaged.
Yes.
Was there any damage to either one of those properties on the 26th?
At car doctor.
And what was that damage?
Towards the back, where the body shop is.
What kind of damage?
So when we arrived at car doctor, went inside, our mechanics were there. He actually pointed out, hey, you want to come see this?
Now when you say he, we're talking about your
Our mechanic.
you don't have to tell me what he said, can you just tell me what he showed you?
Yes, that's what I'm about to do. So he took us towards the back, towards the building where there's a body shop. So it's a 4-car garage, and what we observed was there's the body cars, a lot of bumpers, a lot of taillights, headlights. All those cars in the back are for body repair. So there is pickup trucks, they're usually rust out, and there are a few of them, but there was one by the garage.
So the damage was to the, if I have you, what you're saying right, to the inventory.
Well, not inventory. So basically, there was.
Let me decipher this for the people watching this. The car doctor is a place that they buy wrecked and piece of shit cars at auction at a cheap price. They bring them to car doctor, fix them up, and then they sell them on their 2 lots. So when all the riots happen, they have all these shit cars that they bought at auction that they were about to fix, and they claimed all the damage on all those cars from the riots in order to get paid so they can fix it and make more profit. Did I clear that up? Raise your hand if I lost you. All right, whatever.
There's a lot of glass on the back door. Yeah, I can't. And the garage doors, the rectangular tiles that are see-through, they were stretched. They were fallen inside the shop. So it seemed like it was a break-in.
Okay. Do you have? I'll ask you this way. On the morning of the 25th, you went to the properties to make sure that they were okay from the night before, the 24th, right? I'm talking about car doctor and car source 3. You checked the properties to make sure they were okay?
Monday or Tuesday?
Monday night into, Monday, I take that back. Tuesday morning. You checked the properties and they were okay?
Yes, sir.
Now, at car doctor, you have a ladder, is that right?
Not that I can recall.
Do you have a ladder at any of your properties?
No, I don't think so. I don't believe so.
Have you seen videos of, on the night of the 25th, of people at your property?
I have.
Okay. They're on the roof, right? Yes?
Yes.
Do you have a way to get to the roof?
They made a way.
Oh, were you there?
No.
So I want you to tell me what you know, not what you're guessing.
Yes, that's what I was about to. When I brought up the pickup truck, on top of the pickup truck has a cab. Okay, we had about you can say, at that time, probably 250, 280, less than 300 tires in the back shed, and we keep them in the shop or whatever. So they're stacked on top of the pickup truck, on the cab, towards the roof.
So it is your belief that these men climbed up on the tires and then climbed up on the roof? That's your belief?
I just told you what I saw the next day, on Wednesday morning.
And you never provided, is it your testimony today, you never provided a ladder to anybody to get on the roof of car source?
I did not.
Do you know if your brother was there that night prior to curfew, right? On the 25th?
The 25th.
This helps. I can tell you there's a picture of him with the
Yeah, it's better with the days, Monday and Tuesday. Sorry, I just have a hard time with the dates.
Do you know if your brother gave them a letter?
No,
You don't know?
No, you don't.
he did not.
Were you there?
At Car Doctor
At Car Source at 7:30, 8 o'clock at night on Tuesday.
on the 63rd Street.
Were you and your brother ever together on Monday or Tuesday? How about that?
Yeah. I'll ask you this. When did you leave the properties for good? On the 25th.
Before curfew.
Okay. When?
It was in between 7:30, 7:45.
Did you see those people that were armed at any one of those properties on the 25th?
No, sir.
You did? Did you see that? You didn't see them like standing with your brother in that photograph?
I did see that.
So you saw armed.
I did or did not?
But in the photograph, I do see people.
So you saw those people on your property on the evening of the 25th, Tuesday,
Yes.
with your brother.
No.
You just saw them there without your brother.
When I got there, I was ready to take off. I had to just lock up the building and heading home before the chaos and all the protest starts.
And those people were at your property.
Those people,
People with guns. They were at your property, right?
I saw a lot of people on Sheridan Road armed.
I'm asking you specifically if you saw people with guns on your property before you left to go home on Tuesday.
Man, he's being very evasive. At first, I thought it was he didn't know. Now I think he's being very careful.
I'm sorry, I cannot remember. I know that I was asking my brother to leave.
So you were down there to pick up your brother, right?
No.
You were down there.
I got a ride from my mechanic. He dropped me off, and I came in, locked up the store, and we left.
Agree that the next day, meaning the
Who is we? Did you leave with your mechanic or your brother?
Wednesday, there's no damage to any of the doors on your building in terms of no locks busted, none of that stuff, correct?
On which location?
Any of them.
Car Doctor, there's damage.
To the locks?
To the back. To the glass, to the garage doors.
But you don't know who did that.
I do not know.
Okay. And have you watched the video of people, armed men, walking in and out of the Car Source that evening?
Yes, I have. I have.
You've seen that?
Yes.
Okay. Did Nick Smith have a key to your building?
No,
Did you give him a key that night?
I did not.
How about Justin Hamilton? Justin Hamilton.
No, I did not.
No?
No.
But you saw on the video them walking in and out of your store.
I cannot even tell who is who or who these people are.
That wasn't my question. My question was you saw people walking in and out of your
Yes, I did.
store.
Did you think, or do you think, as you sit here now, how they got access to the store? Do you know? Did you ask anybody? It's been months. You still don't know how they got into your store? Come on, dude.
You never asked, and you never asked Nick Smith, and you never asked Justin Hamilton. Kyle Rittenhouse if he could help protect your business on Tuesday the 25th.
I did not.
You never asked, and you never asked Nick Smith, and you never asked Justin Hamilton.
No, I did not.
That was a clever wording because he got him to say the other two guys already testified that he did ask them. I'm assuming is what he's getting at. And if they didn't say that, the defense or the prosecution would have objected when he said they said it. So the other two people testified they were asked, and he threw in Kyle's name. So he denied Kyle and the other two people. Well, the jury knows that two people admitted to it on the oath, so they're going to assume that gives Kyle credibility that what he's saying is true, and this guy doesn't have credibility. That was slick the way he worded those three together.
I'm going to ask you to this way, and I'm not trying to be offensive the way I say this is. Were you just willing to let your property be damaged on the 25th?
After seeing the destruction, there's nothing I could do.
So you kind of resigned yourself to the fact that whatever was going to happen on that day was going to happen. Is that what you're saying?
I do not know.
But yet, you went over there and moved all your inventory. So he didn't resign himself that it was going to. He went in and moved. You took actions to protect your cars, and yet you didn't take action to protect your building?
Have you provided interviews as it relates to the damage to your property?
I may have.
Okay.
May have.
I'm looking at one of those interviews right now, and what I want to ask you is if this sounds about right to you, and I'm taking it off of your interview. 137 vehicles were burned on your lots. Does that sound about right?
If that's what it says.
That's not the question.
I do not know the numbers off the top of my head. I'm sorry. I don't have the...
Would you challenge that it was 137, or does that sound about pretty close?
Close.
$2.5 million in losses. Sound about right?
I don't know. My dad handles the money part of the business.
2.5 million and he doesn't know? Who believes 3 months after an incident, the son of the owner who works at the place and manages the place for the mom doesn't know that there's $2.5 million in damages? Who believes that? I sure as hell don't.
Your family had to hire a lawyer because your insurance wasn't going to cover those damages.
That is not true.
That's not true? So if you said that you're working with a lawyer to convince your insurance company to cover at least some of the damages, that's not true?
I did not have to hire an attorney.
Man, he is evasive as shit.
In this interview, did you tell the writer, our insurance company is finding their way out so they don't have to pay for all this arson? Did you tell them that?
Well, there was no acceptance from the insurance company, so there's...
My question to you was, did you tell this interviewer that our insurance company is finding their way out so they don't have to pay for all this arson? Is that correct?
I'm surprised the prosecution isn't objecting that, Your Honor, we don't know what he's reading from. It's not in evidence. We haven't authenticated it. We don't even know if he gave an interview or who he gave it to. I'm surprised the prosecution isn't objecting to this.
Sorry, I do not remember.
You don't remember saying that?
I do not remember. And to add to that, they also said that I was dead. That was in the media too. So I do not.
Well, I'm
remember.
asking what you said, okay?
I do not remember, sir.
You do not remember having that conversation?
I do not.
You don't dispute the 2.5 million?
I cannot tell you. I don't deal with the numbers. My dad does. I'm an inventory manager, sir.
The only person quoted in this article, your dad's not quoted, it's you. Has your dad given interviews, do you know?
He does not speak much English.
Okay, so the numbers came from somewhere, and your dad doesn't speak English, and your brother doesn't work there, so it's you, right?
But I do not remember that. I'm sorry, it's been over a year.
Okay. So when you testified under oath that you had insurance for all of this, that's not true, right?
I'm sorry, what was the question again?
You've already testified under oath that you had insurance for all of this. That's not true, is it?
We do have insurance. My dad does have insurance on all the locations.
But not for those vehicles due to arson, correct?
I'm not understanding the question. I'm so sorry. Could you repeat that for me?
I asked you, one of the first questions I asked
Sure.
was about your loss. You had said you have insurance. My statement to you is, you don't have insurance for all the damage done to those vehicles from arson. Isn't that true?
We do have insurance
For
Answer the
arson.
question, what you're saying.
for ours. I do not know.
How do these guys fill out tax returns and conduct business? I mean, his dad don't speak English. His son don't work in the business, but he started his own business. His mom's owns a place that he's a manager, but he don't work there. Man, this whole thing just screams of fraud. See, the good thing is when this goes to civil trial, they'll be able to play the testimony from these other people that said, hey, he asked us to guard that, which is going to do liability. And they're going to get up there and go, no, we didn't. But it's not going to hold a whole lot of weight when you have two ex-employees that were there. These guys are so inconsistent. I mean, these guys have zero credibility, both him and his brother. They're both real good about not remembering, and I don't know.
Did you see your brother give 4 men a ride in his BMW from the 59th Street address down to the 6226 address? Did you see him giving?
I did not.
No.
Sleeping.
I don't have any questions for you. Thank you, sir.
Me to write?
Yeah.
You may step down, sir.
No redirect. They want to get him off there. Why wouldn't he redirect on some of this to try to clean it up? They're like, you know what? I got the answers I wanted. He didn't give him permission. He doesn't know Kyle. That's all I needed. I ain't going to redirect him. Good job, government.
The whole truth and nothing but the truth, so help you God.
Uh-oh. Oh, here we go.
Can you please state your first and last name and spell them for the benefit of the court reporter?
Officer Eric Widener, E-R-I-C-H, W-E-I-D-N-E-R.
And Mr. Widener, how are you employed?
As a City of Kenosha police officer.
How long have you been a police officer?
Going on 22 years now.
Don't they have real badges there, or they make you wear the little cereal box badges? That's the littlest damn police badge I've ever seen and shit. That must be some cheap-ass freaking county. Yeah, we're going to shrink the badges next year, save some money.
And what is your current assignment?
Third shift patrol.
And were you working on the evening of August 25th, 2020?
Yes.
What were your general duties that evening?
I was assigned patrol.
So the City of Kenosha was patrolling on that night?
Yes.
And where were you stationed, or what were your activities?
I wasn't in a riot area because they were burning shit down. I stayed out of there.
Let's say at the beginning of your shift that night.
Just normal patrol, taking calls if a call came out for service, staying in the area of the downtown area, uptown area, and just taking normal calls when someone called 911.
What do you mean by staying in the downtown area or uptown area?
In the outskirts of the heavy congested area that was having the unrest.
So that was part of your duties, was to stay
Unrest. We can't call it riots. Call it unrest.
around there, but then if another call came in, domestic violence or burglary, you'd go to that call?
Yes.
At any point were you directed to go to the area of 63rd Street and Sheridan Road?
Yes.
Why were you directed to go there?
I am an evidence technician also, and I was called to go and process a shooting scene.
So what is an evidence technician?
We have a special training above and beyond what a normal patrol officer has, and we respond to calls of service for like burglaries, anything that needs fingerprinting, shootings, shots fired, suspicious deaths, stuff like that. Kind of like what everyone knows as a CSI, but we do it kind of as on patrol.
Now, what you said you were there to process the scene, what does that mean?
I was told there was a shooting scene, and they wanted me to process it, photograph it, document it, and collect evidence.
At that point, how many details about the shooting were you given?
None, just that there's a shooting, and a subject was down.
Can I ask you to bring the microphone closer to you?
I was trying to lean forward.
You can move the microphone, actually. That might be easier.
All right. Much better.
So what is the first thing you did when you got to this? The scene is a car source location, is that correct?
Correct. It's a car place at 63rd and Sheridan.
What is the first thing you did when you arrived on this scene?
I spoke to multiple supervisors on the scene, asked them what the circumstances were. The person who was shot was not on scene anymore, so I asked questions about that. And then I was walked towards where they thought the scene was.
And then what is the next thing that happened?
Eventually, I started locating some evidence, and I started photographing the scene.
Where did you first locate evidence?
The first evidence I located was spent shell casings or fired shell casings in the street, about the 900 block of 63rd, which is west of Sheridan Road.
Now, there should be a laser pointer up there. If not, I can give you one. I have this one in front of you. Could you just indicate on the map?
Yes.
And could you tell what kind of shell casings those were?
Those were 40 caliber.
Are those the type that be normally fired by a handgun?
Typically, yes.
And those were actually in the street.
Correct.
What's the next thing you discovered, or what did you do next?
I placarded them with little number placards for the photographs 1 and 2, and then as I walked east towards the car lot, I found another shell casing that matched the other two on the parkway, which is between the sidewalk and the street. Typical houses would have grass, but it was a business, so it was concrete there.
So there's another 40 caliber shell casing.
Correct.
That is still not on the lot of the car source.
No, parkway.
What is the next thing that happened?
I walked into the parking lot, and I observed what appeared to be blood on the concrete of the parking lot. Closest to would be the southeast corner of the building.
Can I get that? What is that number again? 47. Officer, if I could direct your attention to the screen to Exhibit 47. What are we looking at here?
So the building I'm talking about is to the left on this picture, and there's a group of 6 cars. That's where most of my evidence I found reference the shooting happened, and that's where the blood was found also, possible blood.
So is it fair to say that if you were standing where the person that took this picture, which was I presume you, did you take this picture?
Yes.
Are you facing Sheridan?
That's right. I didn't hear that.
Court reporter saying you're going too fast.
Thank you. So is it fair to say that as you were taking this photo, you're looking directly at Sheridan Road and then what is now Freighter behind Sheridan Road?
Correct. I'm facing east.
Okay. That's a more succinct way of putting it.
Towards the lake.
And so in the middle of this area of cars is where you found most of the evidence in this scene?
Correct.
Can I have the next exhibit, 48, please? And Exhibit 49? Is this the building?
This is the building I was talking about. It's the very south end of the building where the group of 6 cars were parked.
And the next, I believe, would now be Exhibit 50? What is this, sir?
It's a picture of 2 cars. The silver car, I believe there's a number placards next to it. Those should be, one of them should be where the possible blood is. The other one should be shell casings I found, fire shell casings.
So that moisture on the concrete there, is that related to the crime scene or is that something else?
I couldn't determine what that was.
Now, you talked about placards. There's a pointer there on top of the, no, I'm sorry, an actual wooden pointer.
Fire shell casings.
And what kind of shell casings were they?
223 Remington Aguilas. Aguila, A-G-U-I-L-A, I believe.
Can you move to Exhibit 51, please? Number 51 on the screen.
Correct.
And that's one of the 223 rounds?
Correct.
How many rounds of 223 ammunition did you find?
That night I found 2, which is labeled right here in this picture.
Those are the 2 that you found?
Correct.
Are you aware if any others were found of 223 ammunition?
I was told multiple days later that some other ammunition was found.
And do you know where it was found?
I was told under a car. That's all I heard.
Did you look under every car for casings?
Yes, I looked under cars.
With a flashlight or something?
Yeah, with the oblique angle with flashlight, you put it on a side angle. The shell casings usually pop out at you because they're on a different plane. I didn't see anything under the cars.
And you're doing this around midnight, after midnight on that evening?
Correct.
Should have asked, the defense should have asked, could it have been possible you missed them or you know they weren't there? I think this guy's going to say, I know they weren't there, I looked. So we don't know if the shell case they found later or in fact were there when you were there. I would discredit those 2 casings they found later.
Yeah, is that some of the blood next to it?
No, the blood's off to the left from the picture.
If I could have the next exhibit.
Before I pick it up.
Next exhibit 53, please.
That I was just talking about, and then number 6, which is up on towards the top of the screen, towards the other vehicle that's parked, that was the possible blood that I found.
Would that be all that darker colored area there?
It's hard to see from that picture, but it's definitely where the placard is. I'm not sure about the black color on the right. I don't know what that is.
And is it fair to say that when we're looking at this picture, we're sort of looking in the midst of those group of 6 cars, kind of in the middle of them?
Yeah, I guess, yes.
I think he's facing south now.
So what is the next thing that you did?
I most likely took a medium and close-up of the possible blood on the ground, and then I noticed there's a black hooded, like a full face mask that was to the right or to the north of this picture right here.
So this is just placard 5, that's one of the casings?
Correct. Just dropped it there. Had no weathering on it. Nothing like it's been there for months or anything like that. Not sure if it had anything to do with the case that we're on, so I just labeled it.
So as we're looking at this, are you facing south?
Yes, I'm facing south. I'm standing at the corner of the building, the southeast corner of the building.
And you're looking right at where the shooting happened?
I'm looking at where my located evidence was found, yes.
So we're kind of looking into the middle of that group of 6 cars?
Correct.
And did you change any of the lighting or do anything with the lighting from earlier in the evening? The lighting that was on that parking lot?
No.
About how long after the shooting were you processing the scene?
I cannot answer. I don't remember. We would have timestamps of that for our dispatch, but I don't remember, to be honest with you.
But it wasn't like 4 in the morning at this point?
No.
So it would have been relatively close to when the incident occurred?
If I had to guesstimate, I'd say an hour.
Okay. I believe this is exhibit 54.
Is there objection?
Okay, so this guy's a pretty good witness. He doesn't appear so far to have an agenda. He's saying, I would guesstimate about an hour because he doesn't know, but he's kind of giving an educated guess. It was probably somewhere between 30 minutes and an hour and a half. So he just said an hour.
Okay. That's it then, right? Yes. So 51, 52, 53, 54.
And then I collected all the evidence. I believe I took a crime scene video of it, and then I collected all the evidence, and then I proceeded back to the police department for the evidence.
Did you find another casing on Sheridan Road?
I believe it was on 63rd Street, west of all the other casings. So the 40 caliber casings I initially talked about on 63rd Street, those were more towards the house that was labeled 915. I found another one 2 houses away, which is 925 63rd Street, and that turned out to be a 9mm casing, fire casing.
Now, in terms of your activity that evening, is that the extent of your activity at this crime scene?
Before I left, there was a possible shots fired going on in a park west of us, 1 block west of us, and I went over there to attempt to locate evidence also.
Best of your knowledge, that had no relation to this crime scene?
I believe it had nothing to do with this crime scene. There's other shootings going on.
Is everything you did? Yes. Okay. I have nothing further. Thank you.
Officer, can you tell me, when you arrived on the scene, did you locate a hospital bag
with any items in it?
What kind of bag are we talking about here?
I'm sorry?
What kind of bag? Like
It's
a
only been
grocery bag,
described-
or
It's only been described as like a clear hospital type bag.
I did not locate that bag. No.
How about a fire extinguisher?
Not that I can recall.
So in a case like this where it's a homicide, and you're there relatively quickly after the call comes in, I'm assuming, right? Is that
I'm not
right?
sure how long it took. I was not one of the first responders. It took me a while to get there from the first responding people.
And I think you had said you do kind of like CSI type of work. That's how you described it.
For layman's terms, yes.
Is the area like taped off that night? Do you remember?
It was.
And so you're looking, and I believe you, I'm not questioning. You're looking under cars for spent casings, and you understand that a time later, a couple days later, there were more casings that had been located. Is that right?
Correct.
Did you have anything to do with the collection of those? Any involvement in the casings that were found after?
No, I did not.
I don't have anything else. Hey, thank you.
Can you read it back?
If you remember, what parameters or what were the perimeter of the crime scene that you were examining?
With the crime scene tape, you mean?
Yeah.
When I arrived on scene, the crime scene tape was put up by the other officers who responded prior to me. It was on the very south side of 63rd Street, extended from the alley, which is west of the building in question,
Totally irrelevant. He just wanted to ask a stupid question.
all the way to Sheridan Road. It crossed Sheridan Road onto the Kenosha Hospital property. It went down the sidewalk northbound towards the other shooting, I guess.
Wow, great question. That broke the case wide open.
So it was a very large scene.
Yeah, it was taped off. Typically, we'll do that. We'll have the crime scene of the main area of the crime scene, and because of large crowds or unruly crowds, we'll expand it farther than normal.
And is it fair to say that there had been, if you know, that there had been a crowd around this crime scene earlier in the evening?
Once the tape was up,
No, before the tape was up.
yes, there's large crowds.
And unless you're told specifically it relates to the crime, is a empty fire extinguisher or a hospital bag something you would typically collect?
Unless I determine it's part of the crime for the investigation, then I would collect it. I had no knowledge of a hospital bag or a fire extinguisher being used in this incident.
Nothing further.
Any questions?
If it was there, would you have put that little card on it, the hospital bag?
I would have to determine if it had something to do with this. If it's just blown there from the wind or something like that, then no, it had no relation to what was actually happening. Unless someone would have told me there's a bag involved in this, then I'd be looking for a bag, obviously.
Well, that's kind of a stupid investigation, dude, because if it's in a crime scene, you need to take a picture of it and you determine later whether or not. You can't run up there and go, oh, unless I know it's connected, I don't photograph it. How do you know the tail casings were connected? Oh, well, that's different. That's a pretty shitty answer, and that's pretty sloppy police work. If you're telling me you got a crime scene marked off and you see a fire extinguisher bag and you're going to try and convince me, well, I didn't know they were related, so I didn't touch them. Why the fuck wouldn't you print them and say they were there and later let people figure out that wasn't involved? We didn't need that. You don't, in the middle of a homicide crime scene, you don't discount evidence just because you don't know it was involved. That's a really dumb answer on a stand, dude.
We're right across the street from a hospital. It could have been wind. I don't know. I don't remember seeing a bag.
Okay, thank you.
Nothing on that.
Give me a step down, sir.
Thank you.
Another officer. Wow. Is this the same guy? Oh, maybe it's not the same guy. I don't know.
You're about to give in this matter will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God. Please be seated.
Rick, why do you say all cops are... Never mind. Wow, he got a big boy badge.
On, but if you could just try to maneuver that microphone as close to
Oh, look at all those tats. Ooh.
as possible and try to speak into it because the acoustics are not great. Can you please state and spell your name for the record?
Jeffrey
Does everybody notice his badge is bigger than the other guys? Wow.
Van Wee, V-A-N, capital W-I-E,
And officer, how are you employed?
the City of Kenosha Police Department.
I went over his name, sorry.
Can you please state and spell your name for the record?
Jeffrey Van Wee, V-A-N, capital W-I-E,
And officer, how are you employed?
the City of Kenosha Police Department,
How long have you been a police officer?
for 18 years.
Did you become involved in the investigation of a shooting involving a Kyle Rittenhouse?
Yes.
And how did you become involved in that case?
I was handed over evidence by Detectives Howard and Anthoranium to process and actually secure into evidence.
And how did you go about obtaining that or starting doing that?
So Detectives Howard and Anthoranium met me by the police station. From there, the evidence was brought into our evidence room in the police station, and it was turned over to me.
And was this on August 26th?
Yes.
Do you recall the time?
It was roughly 9 in the morning, maybe a little before 9 in the morning.
And do you know from where these items had come?
No.
So what is the very first thing you did?
What do you mean you don't know where the items came? When you turn in a piece of evidence, it says right on there, location it was seized, date, time, what's the case number? How do you not know where it was coming from? You just get evidence and just throw it in there? What the hell's going on?
First thing I did was I was given 2 rifle boxes, so I actually processed the rifles and took photos of them.
Now, do you have any special training to do this type of thing?
Yes, I do.
And what is that?
I'm a certified evidence technician for the last 15 years.
And what does that mean?
That means that as far as crime scenes go, that I would, whenever any different kind of crime scene goes, or I would go respond to that scene and I would process that scene for evidence, searching for whether it's DNA or fingerprint evidence or blood evidence. Also just processing evidence. So like if a detective has an item that he needs processed for DNA, then I would actually take that and swab that correctly.
And how do you swab that correctly?
As far as the rifles went, I actually took 3 swabs from each rifle. The swabs I obtained were from the trigger, from the pistol grip, and then from the barrel has a guard around the barrel, so I swabbed the guard of that barrel.
It's called the heat shield or hand grip. Okay, forend grip, whatever.
That's the most likely place if somebody's holding that weapon, that their hand would be on that guard.
Why would you not, or why didn't you swab the actual barrel?
So when I was given these rifles to process, I was instructed to process them. There was at that time, for my knowledge, there was no reason to swab the barrel.
Oh my God, are you telling me you have a case to where a guy tries to take a guy's gun from him and you don't swab the barrel to see if the guy actually had his hand on the barrel? So now we can't prove that the dead guy actually grabbed the barrel? Wow. I hope they show this as incompetence, the defense.
So you swab the areas where someone is most likely to actually grip or hold the weapon.
Correct.
And that generally would not be the barrel of a gun.
Correct.
So what did you do?
This is what you call justifying the incompetence.
What's the first weapon that you encountered?
It was a rifle box that had writing on it. It's like Kyle Rittenhouse.
So what did you do with that?
With that one, I opened the box up. I wound up taking the serial number down, the information out from the weapon, photographing it, and then swabbing it in those areas I just mentioned.
This is really freaking amazing, the level of this incompetence. You've got a freaking homicide investigation, and you have somebody that you don't even really know just drops off a fucking gun, tells you to process it. You don't ask who shot it, who the good guy, was it used, was there a fight, did somebody, you don't check whether he hit somebody in the head with the butt, and you need to check for blood or skin matter on the butt. You don't know if there was a fight, or you don't know if it touched somebody and burnt. You don't know shit. So it's just a homicide investigation. I'll just put a little dab on the trigger, the handguard, and the grip. Are you freaking kidding me? This is a colossal fuck right here. I mean, you just can't get more of a shit sandwich than that. This is incompetence at the 10th level. Wow.
DNA.
Did you take photos of them?
Yes, I did.
And then what is the next thing you did in processing this evidence?
That once I finished with that, it gets secured up, and then so I tape up the box, and it's all.
All right, so you weren't here, obviously, but a couple days ago we had an evidence box that was opened and it was taken out of there. So you would have at first sealed it up in that box. You were the first one to do that?
That's correct.
And then you would put that into evidence?
Yes.
And then you would come back to the next thing?
Correct.
All right.
So, and the defense ought to be saying, so when you got these guns, do you know who handled it on your department? Do you know if the detective that brought it to you picked it up? Do you know who picked it up? Do you know how that gun got in the box, or who's the last person to handle it? Do you even know how many days had passed since the incident versus when you got... Do you know anything about the gun? No. They just gave me a fucking gun, and I'm an evidence technician, so I swabbed the trigger. What the are you kidding me?
So what's the next thing that you did?
Next was an additional rifle box, which was labeled Dominic on it.
And what did you do with that?
The same process. So I wound up swabbing the same areas on that weapon for DNA, photographing it, and then securing it, taping up and securing it.
Now, I want to go back to the box that had Kyle written.
This shooting was all over the news and media. I can't believe he didn't know anything about this shooting, hadn't seen a video or nothing, and yet he doesn't swab the barrel, and nobody tells him, hey, make sure and check the barrel for prints. A guy tried to attack him and take his gun. Are you freaking kidding me? I mean, and what's to stop them from going back right now if they still have the gun? I mean, the defense can go, Your Honor, we want you to issue an order that they need to go back and check the barrel of that gun. That's important. I can't believe this.
Rittenhouse written on it. Did you ever look into you said there was a rifle. Was there anything else along with the rifle?
There was also a sight or a scope, if you will, inside the box. It was not attached to the rifle.
Was there
A scope or a red dot? Because a scope indicates magnification. Some red dots have magnification, some don't. Dude, are you a freaking cop? Or do you just eat freaking steroid donuts and shave your head and get tattoos?
anything attached to the rifle?
A black sling,
And was there any ammunition or a magazine or anything like that?
not in that box. There was a separate bag that had a magazine in it with live ammunition.
And did that have one or two magazines?
Had one.
And was there any markings on that box? Or
That-
bag?
I was informed by the detectives that was from the rifle belonging to Kyle Rittenhouse.
So the detectives did talk to you about what they were giving you. Earlier you said they didn't. Did you ask any questions?
So what did you find when you looked at that magazine?
The magazine had live ammunition in it.
Do you know how much live ammunition was in that magazine?
The magazine itself was a 30 capacity for 30 rounds, and there were 22 live bullets in there, unfired bullets.
And were they all the same brand or were they different brands?
They were all the same as far as caliber goes, but there was multiple different brands in there.
And what was the caliber of these?
They were 223s.
And did you take a DNA swab of that piece of evidence as well?
I did a swab of the actual magazine, so I took a swab off each side of the magazine, a DNA swab.
One swab on both or one
Swab on each side of the magazine.
And then did you package up the magazine and the
Right,
live
so
rounds?
I wound up taking each unfired projectile out, and then in the order they came in, I secured them in boxes. So like the first unfired bullet that I ejected out of the magazine, I would put in a box and label it 1, the second one 2. So I did that for all 22 rounds, and then took photos of each one.
Took photos of each one?
Correct.
Did you do the same thing with the rifle that was labeled Dominic?
There was no ammunition with that, no magazine.
But you did the same process in terms of the DNA swabbing?
Of the actual rifle, yes.
So see, they're trying to make it seem like, oh, it's just routine. You did the same thing on both. It wasn't like you intentionally was an idiot and didn't do the barrel and didn't know anything about the case and didn't ask questions. And everybody in your department that knew this was a homicide investigations didn't tell you anything about it. So it must be okay. What a colossal screw up.
And then what do you do once you take these swabs?
So the swabs I wound up securing. The swabs actually go in a little swab box, and I secure them in an envelope, something that can breathe, that's breathable, and then that gets taped up, and I secure those in a locker into evidence.
Was there any other evidence that was not related to these firearms that you packaged or logged that day?
There were a few other items that was handed, yes. There's some clothing, there was a cell phone, and then a backpack which contains some medical supplies.
Well, it sounds like they did a good job of collecting evidence on Kyle. They didn't do so much of the scene. No fire extinguisher, no bag, no nothing.
Did you do anything with the information that you got off of the firearms?
So we do with every firearm that we log into evidence, we have a form called an E-trace form, and what that is we work with in conjunction with like the ATF as far as having a database and a record of every gun that we log into evidence. So with both of those rifles, I wound up contacting on the telephone an ATF agent who actually did a quick what they call E-trace form with me in order to log that into the database.
I have no further questions. Thank you.
Man, they better cross-examine the shit out of this guy, because he don't know shit. Notice his demeanor changed? Notice his posture changed? You think he's going to be as cooperative with the defense? I mean, his look at his posture from here to here. This is friendly government. How you doing? I'm a good guy. This is, oh, I'm going to talk to the defense now. Man, this ought to be freaking a training video on freaking how body language. Wow.
26th, you basically assist these two detectives, Howard and Antaramian, in terms of doing the swab. Is that right?
They handed off the evidence to me, but I did the swabs by myself. Yes.
Understood. Well, and your report indicates that at KPD, evidence detective Antaramian advised he needed 2 rifles processed. Did he tell you, he being Detective Antaramian, the areas that he wanted swabbed by you?
He did not.
Who made that decision?
I did.
At that point, do you know anything about the case?
Not a whole lot, no.
Okay, so
That's not an answer. Do you see that? Did you know anything about the case? Not a whole lot. That means yes, you did know something about the case. You may have not known a lot, but you did know something. See that answer? Those are the little things that when you do a lot of interviews, you pick up how people are trying to conceal and trick, and they don't want to say what they really want to say, and they don't really want to answer the question.
at that point, do you know anything about the case?
Not a whole lot, no.
Okay, so
Not a whole lot, no.
you mentioned that.
And he just blew right over it. He didn't, well, wait a minute. You said not a whole lot, no. Is it yes, no, or not a whole lot? It's not a whole lot. Okay, well, let's go with not a whole lot. How much did you know? Let's go with the whole lot that you did know. What did you know about it? Come on, dude.
Trigger is swabbed, right?
Yes.
Okay, and I know we don't have the pistol or the firearms here, so I'm gonna. When you say the barrel guard, is that the area here where my left hand would be if I was holding it like this?
Correct. So the barrel of the gun has a plastic, if you would, guard around it, and that's the part that I swab.
Okay. And then the pistol grip, is that the area?
Right. That's where your hand, your palm would be. So if the trigger's here, the pistol grip is where your hand is holding onto.
Okay. So
Nobody knows what a freaking gun is out of all these attorneys?
when the DNA
Maybe they're doing this for the benefit of the jury so they understand in case they don't have a gun.
swab is done initially, obviously you're looking for potentially forensic evidence on that gun, right?
Correct.
But you don't know the areas specifically that you're supposed to be looking at. True?
Unless I'm otherwise told, when I process whether it's a gun or a rifle, it's going to be typically the same areas that I would take swabs from. If there was something else for some other reason or rationale that I would have to do things differently, then I would do things differently. But normally to swab a rifle or a handgun, just about all our evidence people would choose the same.
See, he didn't ask him what he knew about the case. Did you know this case involved a guy who shot somebody who was trying to grab his gun? If he says yes, then why didn't you swab the barrel? If he says no, why didn't the detectives tell you that?
Areas.
Okay, and
Right.
I'm not questioning that. What I'm asking is, at some point, do you learn more information about this case?
I'm sorry, as far as...
I'll ask it to you this way. Did any detective come to you and ask you to do additional swabs on that firearm now that more information about what had happened was out there?
No, they not.
Wow. So not only did they know that he didn't do it because they saw the report on what he did, they didn't even go back and ask him. What a freaking scam. Man, that is brutal.
If somebody would have asked you to swab based on information they had, and they said to you, Officer Van, we would like to know if there's DNA on the actual barrel of that gun, could you have done that?
Absolutely.
And that wasn't done, was it?
No.
Okay, so he made the point that they're incompetent and they intentionally didn't ask and they're trying to conceal. Even though the defense tried to make it look like, oh, it's just routine, right? You do that on every gun? Oh, yeah, it's routine. He got out that nobody asked you. I still think he ought to drive it home clear. I would ask him, don't you think it's odd as a police officer that this is a murder investigation of somebody possibly trying to grab a gun and nobody asked you to swab the barrel? Don't you find that odd?
The firearm that you, I think you opened it that had it's a Kyle Rittenhouse on it?
Correct.
Okay. There was a sight on that gun, is that right?
There was a sight. It was not mounted on it. It was in a box with it.
Okay. If you remember, and I'm going to use the wrong terminology, so I'm
That's
going to
fine.
ask for your help. That sight didn't have a laser that projected out where, for example, if I was holding it, I could put a dot on your chest, correct?
Not to my knowledge, but I never actually messed with the sight at all. So I never turned it on. I never really viewed it at all. So
Okay. And this testing was done the day after.
He can make the defense discover whether or not there was a laser, and then they can both agree that there was no laser, and then he can say it. He needs to get that in, that there was no laser, because they're kind of implying that people were lasering people, and he wants to make it clear that Kyle didn't have a laser, and he didn't laser anybody. But again, they're not making it crystal clear. In these cases, you have to make your point to where every juror gets it. You can't just make it to where you think they got it.
The shooting, right?
the 26th. So if the shooting was the 25th, then yes.
Okay. Thank you for your time.
Okay, thank you.
Question?
Are you aware if the defense attorneys asked for further testing of the gun?
I was not informed of any other further testing.
Thank you.
Oh, that was a nice little trick. Are you aware if the defense attorney asked you to swab the gun? Very nicely done, Mr. District Attorney Lion Scumbag. That was a very good question. Why didn't the defense request that freaking test? And that would be my question too. None of you assholes did it. Meanwhile, Kyle's facing life in prison because you got a bunch of incompetent fucks running around screwing him over. Outrageous.
Any question? You may step down, sir. Thank you. Short break.
Another cop. He's got hair.
Be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God. I did. Please be seated.
Look at all that hair. Ooh. Looks like me when I used to have hair.
So I'm going to ask you to get that microphone right in front of you.
He got a big boy badge too.
Perfect. What's your name?
Officer Moretti.
And can you spell your first and last name for the benefit of the court reporter?
Yes, the first name is PEP, and my last name is MORETTI.
And how are you employed?
The City of Kenosha Police Department.
And how long have you been with the City of Kenosha Police Department?
A little over 12 years.
And were you working on the night of August 25th, 2020?
I was.
And were you with anyone that evening in your squad car?
Yes, my partner that evening was Officer Krieger.
And what were your general duties that evening?
Patrol.
And what is that? What do you mean by patrol?
We were assigned to an area throughout the city. We were in the kind of downtown area.
How many of y'all noticed his badge number's 69 at the last two digits? Whatever.
So we have different areas that we patrol. They're assigned numbers, and we're in what we would consider Area 20, which would be 60th Sheridan and other areas around there.
Now, was there anything out of the ordinary going on that night in that area?
Yes, there was civil unrest.
So, was your duty to patrol?
Nobody can say riot in this trial. They were probably briefed before you came in. Hey, don't refer to riots. Call it civil unrest. Because they're all using the same terminology, and cops don't do that. If I was a cop, I'd be like, yeah, they were rioting. They were tearing up shit. They were burning shit. You wouldn't tell me, yo, man, call it civil unrest. No, I'm going to call it what I would normally call it. I'm not calling it what you want me to call it. I'm testifying. You want someone else to call it civil unrest? You call them. You don't tell me how to testify. But cops aren't going to do that because they want to be team players. They want to get along.
Or the civil unrest, or other things, or both, or how was that working?
It was a combination of both. So we had patrol areas that we were responsible for doing our normal routine patrols, but then we also had to respond to fires that were taking place, civil unrest, and anything that would be actively taking place that would need a response.
At any point that evening, were you made aware of a potential shooting?
Yes, Officer Krieger and I were at 60th Street and 11th Ave, and we heard gunfire, and then a few moments after that, dispatch advised that they were receiving calls that there were shots being fired in the 6300 block of Sheridan Road.
So let me ask this way, you guys were in a squad car?
We were actually, I believe, out on foot at that point at 60th and 11th, and we could hear gunfire in a close proximity to us.
So then what did you do?
We re-entered our patrol vehicle, and then we responded toward the sound of where the gunfire was coming from, which would have been roughly the 6300 block of Sheridan Road.
And who was driving?
I was.
And then Officer Krieger would be in the passenger seat?
That's correct.
So you were at 60th and 11th. Did you just drive right down 60th Street?
Correct. We proceeded east on 60th to Sheridan Road, and then I made a right turn to face south on Sheridan Road.
Now, you had lights and sirens on, or how were you operating, if you remember?
I don't recall if I had our lights active at that time.
So what happened when you get to
I think I saw that car pull up in one of the videos.
60th and Sheridan, you turn right onto Sheridan?
Correct. So I turned the vehicle to face south on Sheridan and observed a large crowd of people. There was a lot of screaming, yelling. There was appeared to be a person laying in the roadway up ahead of us. There was active gunfire throughout the entire city. There was still sounds of gunfire taking place, and we received reports of injured people that needed assistance in approximately the 6300 block of Sheridan Road.
So that would be south of you, and you'd be pointed in that direction?
That's correct.
Now, in this sort of situation where there's this ongoing violence, what are you trained to do? What are you trying to do at that point?
So for a situation like that, the first thing that we would do is if there's an active threat, we're trying to stop the threat. And then after that, it's life-saving measures to try to render aid and preserve life at that point.
So were you going to do that from 60th and Sheridan, or were you trying to get closer?
So we were trying to get closer, but information was put out over the radio that there was rifle gunfire taking place, and we're in a standard patrol vehicle. There's no ballistic protection on our patrol vehicles, and our vests at that point were only rated for handguns. And we weren't equipped to head into what we believed to be an active shooter at that point with the equipment that we had with just the two of us being there. I noticed there were armored vehicles behind us, so I reversed our patrol car and moved it off to the side so that the armored vehicles that were equipped to handle something like that could pass us.
So you were waiting for the armored Bearcats, as sometimes call it, to go past you, and you were going to follow them into the scene?
That's correct.
So what, if anything, happened next?
I'm sorry? Sure.
What, if anything, happened next?
The Bearcats, I believe, began to pass us on the left, so we were in the curb lane, and I believe there was, I'm not sure how many there were, but a few Bearcats, I believe, passed us, and then there was a, at that time, unknown white male approaching us in the roadway toward the front of our patrol vehicle.
And now, as you're sitting here, do you know who that unknown white male was?
Yes.
Who was it?
So for the whole trial, we're like, we don't want to know what you know now. What did you know at the time? But now, as you sit here today, it's okay what you know now. Have y'all noticed that? It depends what fits their objective.
Rittenhouse.
And you had never seen him before?
No.
And when you see this unknown white male, who we now know is Kyle Rittenhouse, what do you observe?
He had a rifle that was slung and somehow attached to his body. He had his hands somewhat similar to this, and he was approaching us in the roadway toward the front of our patrol vehicle. My partner and I, Officer Krieger, gave him multiple commands to get out of the roadway and step to the side so we could proceed and try to get to where we'd observe people ahead in the roadway that needed assistance.
Now, were you giving these commands? Were you shouting out the window? Did you have some sort of system you were giving commands? How are you giving these commands to Mr.
I
Rittenhouse?
recall Officer Krieger yelling out the passenger window. We had our windows down so that we could hear gunfire that was taking place to try to determine how close it was to us if anyone were to approach us from behind or the sides. And I believe at one point I used our SWAT's PA system, which is a loudspeaker that has a microphone.
And what you said, was that directed at Mr. Rittenhouse or the crowd in general?
At Mr. Rittenhouse. We were giving him instructions to get out of the roadway and essentially get out of our way so we could get to where we believe the problem to be.
As Mr. Rittenhouse was approaching the vehicle, were there other people in your way, or was he the primary person blocking you from going down there?
At that point, he was the only one in the way.
So you
trying to
indicated
turn
that
himself
Mr.
in.
Rittenhouse's hands were kind of up,
That's correct.
and you said he had a rifle.
Yes.
Did you think that that might be the person who could have been involved in the shooting?
At that point, no. In my prior experience in law enforcement, when somebody surrenders to us, they will generally put their hands up, but then they will take a further step and generally drop to their knees, or they will lay in a prone position and make some.
Oh my God. So now they're saying that he didn't give up the right way. Are you kidding me? Dude, this is a stock answer. They wanted him to answer this way, to say that he really wasn't trying to give up. Wow, that's some low blow shit, you crooked ass.
At that point, no. In my prior experience in law enforcement, when somebody surrenders to us, they will generally put their hands up, but then they will take a further step and generally drop to their knees, or they will lay in a prone position and make some type of further action. They'll usually follow commands when they're attempting to surrender. I've never in my career had somebody put their hands up and continue to advance and disobey orders from us to not advance on us.
I would ask this guy, how many times in your career have you had somebody give up, put their hands up, kneel down, and lay down for you to give up without you telling them? How many times does that happen? And if he says once, I'm going to call him a liar, because it ain't never happening. It ain't never happening to me. I ain't never seen it happen. I ain't even seen it happening in any video that I've ever watched. That is a bullshit statement, and this cop lost all credibility for me.
And were there other people out that night that had rifles and firearms?
We were surrounded all night, all week.
This is really suborning perjury. The DA wanted him to say that. That's a stock answer. He knows it's a damn lie. Every cop that's ever worked knows it's a damn lie. And he went out there and said that in front of a jury to help the prosecution. That is bullshit.
There was probably more people armed with weapons than not throughout that entire course of the civil unrest.
So seeing someone with an AR-15 wouldn't necessarily mean much to you at that point?
At that point in time that night, no. I had encountered throughout that entire shift, like I said, I probably spoke to more people that had pistols and rifles and baseball bats and you name it than not. And there were also, I couldn't even tell you how many people came up to me throughout the night that had a rifle and would come up to say, hey, I'm not trying to do anything, I just want to talk to you. And the advice that my partner and I gave everybody that night was, if you're a supporter of us or you're here to try to help, go home. There's a curfew in place for a reason, and being out here is only causing more problems. It's harder to tell who's there to be a problem and who's not.
Now, you mentioned curfew. Did you have the ability to write curfew tickets?
We had a system in place for taking people into custody, and then they'd be issued citations, yes.
And were you doing that to everyone that was breaking curfew, or were there guidelines that you were given?
No, that would have been physically impossible with the amount of people that were out there.
So who, if anyone, were you to give curfew tickets to?
I don't remember exactly what the direction was, but it was something along the lines of just the most severe incidents, or if we were to obviously observe a felony taking place, then we would act on that. But
You don't need a curfew to write a ticket on a felony. You arrest them for the felony. That's a bullshit answer too. What was the freaking guidelines to do a curfew ticket? Really? Are you telling me that your guidelines were if they commit a felony, give them a curfew ticket? Are you freaking kidding me? This dude's a freaking idiot.
anything that would be more minor, we didn't have the capability or the manpower to address everything that happened in front of us.
So you couldn't give curfew tickets to everyone. What about if you observed, let's say,
How many curfew tickets did you give out? It's going to be 0 or 1.
a property damage that did not threaten someone's safety?
That would just have to stay in the stack until we were able to get to it.
So that you had a priority list that evening of things you would respond to.
Correct.
Now, a shooter, where would that be in the priority list?
That would be at the top of the list.
So this man we now know as Kyle Rittenhouse is approaching you. There's commands over the PA. There's commands being shouted. What's the next thing that happens?
He approached the passenger side of our patrol vehicle. With him disobeying the commands and being armed with a rifle like that, I drew my service weapon, and Officer Krieger deployed pepper spray because it became clear and obvious that he was not going to go away, that he continued to just advance on us and disobey commands.
Now, you say you were still driving the vehicle, correct?
Correct.
So when you draw your service weapon, what does that mean? What did you do with it?
So anytime we're confronted with somebody that's armed and that could be a threat to us, it's not uncommon for police officers in this country to be ambushed, and given everything that was taking place, a war zone is the only way.
Oh my God, ambushed. The poor cops. They're all victims. He just came from a dead baby call. Poor guy. Oh, you got armored vehicles all around. You said you've encountered more people that are armed and not armed, and now all of a sudden it's really scary.
I could describe it. We were surrounded. The city was burning and on fire, and we were just outnumbered and completely surrounded. So with his advance with that weapon,
That's good. When government feels surrounded and overwhelmed, guess what they do? Nothing. That's exactly what they should do. Stay the hell out of people and leave us alone.
we were in a stop position at that point, and we're waiting for him to get out of the front of our vehicle so we could advance. And as he approached the passenger side, I was able to use my right hand to withdraw my weapon and then keep my left hand on the steering wheel.
So did you point the weapon, or you just kind of point it at him, or you just have it ready? What were you doing with it?
I would imagine that I would have had it pointed at him, because somebody advancing on us with a rifle not obeying.
I would have imagined. Does that mean you know or you don't know if you pointed it at him? See, you can't let these things slide unless it fits your narrative, then you can.
Commands at that point would be taken as a threat.
Now, were you on patrol the night before?
I believe I was.
You don't remember for sure?
I worked continuously through all of our civil unrest, and I don't believe any of us had any days off, so I would say that's fair to assume.
If you remember, and you may not, is it fair to say there were more fires of property damage the night before than on this Tuesday night?
That's correct. Through that period of things, I was there from the start of the civil unrest with the protesting, and long before we had anything set up or in place. I was there for the start of it and through this incident.
Is it fair to say that there was a more presence of Bearcats and National Guard and things on this Tuesday night than the Monday night previous?
Yes.
Now, you said you drew your weapon and Officer Krieger deployed pepper spray. Were you able to see if the pepper spray had any impact or hit Mr. Rittenhouse?
Not sure if it made contact with him, but his deployment of the pepper spray had the desired effect, because he began, I think he continued northbound at that point and got away from us.
So then what's the next thing that happened?
I continued southbound on. And
Did he just say he got away from him? Did I miss that?
Fair to say that there was a more presence of Bearcats and National Guard and things on this Tuesday night than the Monday night previous?
Yes.
Now, you said you drew your weapon and Officer Krieger deployed pepper spray. Were you able to see if the pepper spray had any impact or hit Mr. Rittenhouse?
Not sure if it made contact with him, but his deployment of the pepper spray had the desired effect, because he began, I think he continued northbound at that point and got away from us. So
then what's the next thing that happened?
I continued southbound on Sheridan Road, and we located a subject in the roadway, Mr. I'm not sure how you pronounce his last name, Gage.
I believe it's Grosskreutz.
Grosskreutz. We encountered him, and his right arm was badly damaged, and he needed urgent medical care.
So what did you observe as you found Mr. Grosskreutz?
There was a large group of people. Everybody was screaming. There was a lot of people running around screaming. The one Bearcat had pulled up, and they loaded Mr. Grosskreutz into the Bearcat.
There were people with guns around you. Did you draw your gun?
And requested an escort out of the area to the nearest hospital.
Did you provide that escort?
We did.
And were there still a lot of people around that scene?
Yes, there was people everywhere.
And did you hear any additional gunfire or anything like that?
There was constant gunfire. That was one of the things that when we first encountered Mr. Rittenhouse that didn't set off any alarms for us, as far as him being a potential shooter in this incident, was that there was still gunfire erupting around us while we were still out on Sheridan, so we thought there was still an active threat.
So when you found Mr. Grosskreutz, you were concerned there was still an active threat out there?
That's correct.
So after you provided the escort with Mr. Grosskreutz in the armored vehicle, so you go to and where do you go?
We escorted the Bearcat to Frederick South Kenosha Hospital, which was right there. We were actually in front of it. So we got them around to the emergency room entrance, and I went inside to let the medical staff know they had a probable trauma coming in due to the amount of damage that was done to his arm.
And then what's the next thing?
I always went in the hospital first to let them know that usually it was to check out the nurses and bullshit with them. But, you know, you got to get in first with the nurses. Come on, Rick. Shit.
That you observed or did?
After that, there was a security supervisor for KMH that had called in an officer down, and that triggered a response from us to try to locate an injured officer, which there wasn't. They just couldn't contact one of their security personnel, and they weren't able to find him, so they falsely called that in.
So when you heard injured officer, you thought one of a law enforcement officer?
Yes, when dispatch advisor was an officer down at the hospital, we assumed it was a law enforcement officer.
Now, we have heard testimony that there was a lockdown at the hospital. Was that part of this?
The hospital, I believe, was either going into lockdown or had already been locked down. We were greeted by, I believe, a security guard at the entrance that gave us access and saw us pull up.
What's the next thing you saw or observed?
There was a male by the name of Giovanni Garcia. He was very panicked. He was in a hospital room, and he kept stating that he wanted to leave.
We don't need. Yeah. I wasn't seeking that testimony, so I'm just asking what you saw and what you heard, not what people are telling you.
Okay.
So there was a Mr. Garcia you dealt with,
That's correct.
and then did you have any dealings with Mr. Rosenbaum?
I did.
And what were your dealings with him?
A Dr. Bornes had advised me that Mr. Rosenbaum was deceased from his injuries, and he was moved to room 18, I believe it was, in the ER. I photographed his body and then collected the clothing that he was wearing that night.
Do you have any training in evidence handling or anything of that nature?
I have standard training for evidence handling. I'm not an evidence technician, but I do have standard training for handling of evidence.
So collecting evidence generally is one of your duties as a patrol officer?
That's correct.
Did you stay with Mr. Rosenbaum's body at any point, or what did you do?
I did.
You did?
I did.
Until when?
I don't recall what the duration was, but I did secure him into a body bag, and then I spoke with a medical examiner about him being deceased, and I was advised to place him in the morgue at the hospital there because they were overrun with tasks and other things and didn't have somebody to send there. So I was able to place his body into the morgue there for safekeeping.
So what did you do with all the clothing and belongings from Mr. Rosenbaum?
I bagged them as I was trained to bag them individually, and then I later secured those into an evidence locker in the public safety building.
I have no further questions. Thank you.
So an evidence locker is where when a cop seizes evidence, you put it in a locker. It has either only one key or two keys. If you lock it, it says one key. You put that key in a box. And in the morning, the evidence technician comes in. He opens up the box with all the keys, and there's your chain of custody. He opens up each box, and he books in and logs the evidence in. So that's when he says he put it in an evidence box. That's what he's talking about.
Cross-examine. Yep.
No cross-examine? Really?
As I go back to something you said your body armor at the time
Could not withstand rifle shots?
That's correct.
And do you know why that is?
It's not rated for rifle rounds. Our body armor that we wear has a rating that comes along with it, and there's an explanation with that rating of the type of rounds that it's capable of stopping, and a rifle round is well above what our body armor was capable of stopping.
If you know, is that because it's rifle rounds are full metal jacket rounds, or do you know why it would be that way?
I'm not sure what exactly the classification was of the ones that we have, but there is a set that they have for the type of round, the caliber and the amount of force that comes with that round, and the ability of the vest to stop those rounds.
So a rifle round could have penetrated your vest and actually done serious damage to you?
It would have gone straight through it like I was wearing nothing and caused severe damage to me or my partner, yes.
Thank you.
And you carry those same rifle rounds, right? To shoot citizens that don't have vests on, right? Oh, they are going to do a cross. He just had another question.
I directly described that scene as a war zone. Is that right?
Correct.
And it was like that.
That's good that he called it a war zone because that promotes Kyle feeling overwhelmed and in a dangerous situation.
Tell me if this is right. On the 23rd, evening of the 23rd, 24th, and into the 25th.
Yes, there was escalating damage and violence that was taking place over the nights.
And in all of your time as an officer, have you ever been involved in nights like that?
Nothing to this magnitude, no.
And I think you said more people were armed than not armed?
Correct.
That's also good because they're trying to make it out that Kyle went out there and he was the only one with a gun.
Can I ask you this? So you were working on the 24th and the 25th?
Yes.
You had said there was more damage, more fires on the 24th and the 25th. Is that right?
That would be my feeling, yes.
Were there more people protecting buildings that you saw on the 25th than on the 24th?
I did observe more people that were armed out in places. I don't know exactly what their alleged function or intended role would be. I didn't have many conversations with people that were out there. We did notice some heightened security.
Okay, so my question was, more people that were protecting the businesses, the less fires that you saw. True?
I don't know that I would equate those two, no. The city was...
Well, there was more fires on the 24th than the 25th. That's what you said, right?
I don't have a report written that would indicate the amount of fires that were started, and I would just be going back and using memory to try to remember. I'm not certain the totality of the fires or how many fires were started and what nights they were.
Okay. So your report indicates that, so you hear gunshots coming from the south, is that right? At about 11:49ish on the 25th?
I believe so, yes.
And are you able to, through your training and experience, decipher the type of firearm that has been fired, like a pistol, a shotgun, a rifle? Can you do that?
On occasion. Sometimes it's hard to decipher different calibers, but sometimes you can.
Were you able to decipher what you thought you heard on the 25th at about that time, at about 10 minutes to midnight?
At the time, I'm not sure what thought process I had at that point. There was just gunfire erupting, and there was multiple types of gunfire going off simultaneously. So I would say it'd be fair to say that, yes, some of it sounded like rifle fire and some of it like pistol fire.
Officer, I'm going to show you.
He would be a good guy to ask with all the fire and all the chaos, when you heard this rifle fire, could you tell who was firing and where they were at? And he would say no, which would corroborate when Kyle was being chased by the child predator, and the guy fired a gun behind him. There would be no way for Kyle to know, and that corroborates that Kyle didn't know who was shooting or where the shots were coming from, and it would make it more reasonable that if he was in fear, that fear was reasonable.
Exhibit 5. If you could tell me, is this vehicle right here the vehicle that you're in?
From this picture, yes, it appears to be.
Okay. And you're in the driver's seat of that vehicle?
That's right.
Okay. Do you see at that point, you know that's Mr. Rittenhouse now, right?
Correct, now, yes.
Do you see him coming toward you at that point?
From our vehicle?
Yeah.
Yes.
And I know you had said you were outside your vehicle. Is it fair to say at that point you're back in your vehicle?
At this point, yes, because we had just turned the corner.
Okay. All right. And now he has his hands above his shoulders, kind of walking toward you. Is that right?
Correct.
Okay. Go ahead. Can you hear those people yelling that guy just shot someone?
At this point in time, no. No, we cannot.
And are you backing up to let the Bearcat through, or are you backing? Is that the reason you're backing up?
At this point, with watching this video, it would probably be dual purpose here. So I did want the Bearcats to be able to get around us. And as you saw twice there, Mr. Rittenhouse did manipulate his rifle as he's walking toward us, like in this part right here. His hands are not above his head. They're actually down toward the rifle. So that's where my partner and I were going through the process of wondering what this is.
Okay, very good.
Looks like he was trying to move it out in front of him to the side.
What this is.
Okay, very good. Now at that point, is that you yelling, "Get out of the road"? Did you hear that?
Yes, I heard it. I'm not certain if that's Officer Krieger or myself. I believe both of us were yelling at him to get out of the road.
Okay. And I think you had said, Attorney Crow said, normally in your experience, people who are surrendering, they'll put their hands up, but they'll do other things, correct?
Correct. They'll usually get down on their knees or prone themselves out
Bullshit. How many times, dude?
and follow instructions that we're giving them.
Right. You're not giving him any instructions to get on his knees or lay down.
That's correct.
Okay, so when you say people do things like do this and then lay on the ground, that's done at your direction.
Not necessarily. I've had quite a few experiences where when somebody does have desire to surrender to us, they will do that on their own because they're aware that they're armed and their intent is to surrender and they don't want something else to happen. So.
And it's also when police officers are dictating to them what to do, right?
Oh, absolutely.
Sit down, hands behind your back, or whatever it is.
Correct. Yeah, instructions will be given at that point as well.
Fair. So.
It has not happened without people telling them. I don't believe that. I've never had a dude come and kneel down. Nobody likes to kneel down or get on the ground unless they have to.
At this point, it's your, and I'm not being critical, it's your testimony that at this point, you have no idea that Mr. Rittenhouse has done anything wrong.
That's correct.
Do you ever make contact with him about him having a firearm in public?
No.
Do you ever want to get any information that he might have as to why he's walking toward you with his arms up? Like
Good
that?
question.
Yes, that would be something that we would do secondary. As I stated earlier, when you still have gunfire that's actively taking place, there's victims that need assistance, and there's still potentially a threat that's got to be stopped. So.
But how do you know he's not going to tell you where the shooter is? Maybe he was going to tell you who the shooter was and where he was at. If you want to find out where he's at, what, you just want to scream at everybody, get away, get away, get away, so we can race into the gunfire? Really? That makes sense?
Those take priority over collecting names and information at that point.
Now, to be fair, in hindsight, the person who was involved in this was, for lack of a better term, you didn't know at the time, but he was surrendering to you.
That's quite possible, yes.
And can you just finish my when you back up like that, you saw him do that, right?
Correct.
Is that the point that you believe Officer Krieger had used the pepper spray?
Yes.
And at that point, you and or Officer Krieger told him to go home or something like that?
I don't recall anybody telling him to go home. The only commands I recall giving him were get out of the road and to stay back.
When you went to the hospital, did you see any videos of what had happened? Meaning any of the shootings?
I know that there were people that had videos playing on cell phones through, I'm not sure if it would be social media or what the websites would have been, but there were people that had videos of what was taking place on their phones, yes.
He didn't ask you that. He asked you if you saw it.
When you were at the hospital, did you become aware that the person that you had contact with right there was the shooter?
I was focused on preserving evidence with Mr. Rosenbaum and other tasks that I had to take place, so that was all in passing. I didn't focus much on what was taking place with that video.
That's a reasonable answer. I agree.
Ready, I appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Q&A.
And they're going to do a cross.
What is your sole focus as you're sitting in that squad car addressing the potential active shooter?
That if we were to come across a threat, to stop that threat, and if we weren't actively engaged with somebody that was a threat, to preserve life and find anybody that was injured and needed medical assistance.
Now, in that video that was just shown, it showed that Officer Krieger was outside the squad car. Do you know why he was outside the squad car right before you backed up?
I don't remember him leaving our vehicle.
Can we play that exhibit again?
Oh my God! How does this? See, this is where the jury just goes, "Get on with it already. Why are you doing this? How is this going to change any fact, other than you guys get to stand up here and talk about stupid shit?"
By the trunk area, and then jump in the. Officer Krieger get out of the. He was behind the vehicle, kind of by the trunk area, and then jump in the passenger seat.
Yes, it appeared that he was exiting to retrieve something from our trunk.
Okay.
Attempting to retrieve something from the trunk, it appeared.
What kind of things do you have in the trunk?
That night we had medical supplies. I believe he had a type of ballistic vest that had plates in it that would have been more helpful for rifle rounds, and I don't recall if he had a rifle in the trunk that evening or not.
How does that confirm or help the guilt or innocence of Kyle?
So it would be more helpful with rifle rounds, but perhaps not stop them?
Correct.
And you're talking about rifle rounds, you're talking about 223s fired from an AR-15 like the defendant had?
Correct.
Thank you, nothing further.
Not just 223s, any rifle, you big dummy. If you knew anything about ballistics and and velocity, you would know that rifles have faster bullets, and they have pointed bullets, which means they have greater penetration. You freaking idiots are prosecuting a crime, you don't know shit about it. Finally. All right, I guess we're done. An hour and 20 minutes. Wow. All right, we'll end that there till the next day. Till Monday, I guess. Y'all have a good weekend.